In the very first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, in the second story of creation, we're told that God creates Adam out of the dust of the earth. And then he breathes the life of the Spirit into him. In Hebrew that is RUAH, or in English we would say RUAH. And for us as Salesians, RUAH is very, very important. It stands for four of the key elements of what it is to be a Salesian, four of the key elements that Ste is sharing with us on this journey. R stands for respect. Respect especially in the way we educate our young people. U stands for understanding, the way that we help our people, especially the young, to understand the beauty and the gift of God that is our church. A stands for affection. We find that in our families, in the love and the care and the respect that we have for each other. For us as Salesians, the family spirit is crucial and essential. We come from families and we live in a Salesian family. And finally, H stands for humour. It is part of what Don Bosco was all about. It was that wonderful gift and spirit of St. Francis de Sales that sought to see the good in everyone and in everything. Father Gerry Briody, as a provincial, as a leader, you've probably heard the phrase that in the church today what we have is a crisis of discipleship, perhaps not a crisis of vocation. Wondering, what are your views about that? And because we've got this fantastic opportunity coming up in a couple of months' time with the ordination of Ste Lloyd SDB, how do you think we as Salesians today should be encouraging young people to follow in the steps of Brother Ste Lloyd and to grasp that wonderful vocation that God has called us to?
Some people have said recently that they believe there's a crisis in discipleship rather than of vocation. And that might well be true, but I think I see things a little bit differently. In today's world, Charles Taylor tells us in his book, The Secular Age, when he asked the question, what would young people in the Western world die for now? He said, nothing. This was 2007, almost 15 years ago. Now that we've had events such as the COVID, a pandemic, and also the war, sadly, in Ukraine, would we say the same thing? Many people stood up, very much took themselves to the front during COVID and sacrificed at times with their lives. Others, of course, young people in Ukraine have left university and college in order to go and fight for what they believe is their homeland. So have we seen a shift in understanding? Perhaps, perhaps not. We don't really know. But I suppose if you were to ask that same question now, are people prepared to give their lives for something they believe in? I think we may have a different answer. Dermot Lane, the Irish theologian, tells us that secularism has produced a discontinuity in some areas, such as in our creative imagination or in our sense of belonging. And I think those two things are very important because for him, for Dermot Lane, he says they block our receptiveness to questions about spirituality, about our own humanity. And I think those questions also include those about vocation. It's difficult for us to actually understand and perceive a vocational call if we don't have those receptors. Perhaps in today's world we're seeing a change. Perhaps young people now maybe feel more challenged about their lives and about its direction by either world events or by what's happening to them personally. At this occasion, it's wonderful that we have Brother Ste with us, who has made his journey through now to ordination. I think that journey fills us with great hope. but also we'd understand that for many young people it still is very difficult for them to hear the call, number one, that God may be asking of them, and secondly, to follow that call. So I think it's beholden on us as individuals who understand what this is about in terms of our own spirituality, to make contact with those young people, to walk alongside them, to give them a sense of belonging and a sense of community. I think these are the things that have helped to inspire Brother Ste on his journey. So Brother Ste, I knew him as a pupil at Savio Salesian College. It would be wrong to say he was a complete angel, but then who is? And I think that's very important. Ste was a young man who had his own views and opinions and his own ideas, which are, again, is very important. I think all through that time, because I saw him also in a parish context, he was also dedicated in his own way to helping to serve and helping to work with young people, and did a tremendous amount of work through the parish, probably less than the school because the school didn't quite have the same opportunity. I did find him outside classes at times and would ask for an explanation as to why, but then that happens to everybody. And I think that's really important because, you know, we're not all people heading necessarily towards sanctity. We may aspire to it, but it's very important we keep touch with reality. And that is extremely important, I think, also for young people, considering the whole notion of vocation. While we might aspire to sanctity, it's a long road and it takes us a long time to get there, and we have to deal with the reality of everyday life. And Brother Ste certainly did that, but more importantly he showed his real generosity and openness through his actions, and I think that is something that speaks very, very loudly today because it's authentic, and he is authentic.